Okay, it is Landon Muri here, founder and CEO of Goodjuju Marketing, and we did a little study. I wanted to make a video version of this for those who prefer to watch or listen, but this is basically a study on property management leads and where they come from. There's a lot of noise about AI lately, Google versus AI, and there's a lot of recommendations. People are talking a lot, there's a lot of hype, but there's not a lot of actual facts and data. And we realized as a property management marketing agency, we have pretty good data on this and decided to dive into it and see what's happening. So this study that we've done, it's for the last 90 days using 31 of the companies, the property management companies that work with us. 31, such a random number. We planned on doing maybe 50 or 75, some nice round number, but as we kept adding more after like 15, 20, the numbers weren't changing. So we just ended early on adding more and more companies because it wasn't affecting anything. And got some interesting insights. So on what is happening now, and I'll explain the methodology a little bit, but overall, 88.4% of our clients' leads in the last 90 days came from Google's ecosystem, the local listings mostly. 1.6% that are attributable come from mostly ChatGPT or other LLMs. And an interesting stat as well is the LLMs, like ChatGPT, had the highest conversion rate out of any of the channels, which we'll get into. But those are three kind of bone stats. Mostly leads are coming from Google. A very small percentage that's trackable is coming from LLMs, but they convert the best. So let's get into it a little bit more. Why we did this, I already kind of explained. There's a lot of talk about AI and people saying, more and more people are using this and using more. How much more? Where's the stats? And particularly in property management, I just haven't seen any data. So that's the reason why we did this, to really see what's going on, because we have real data for property management companies from Google Analytics. And obviously, we're an SEO agency for property management companies. So, we have a stake in SEO being important, but, we don't do GEO or AI optimization, because mostly what that is, it's doing SEO well. Like 90% of it almost means doing SEO the right way. And so we don't do this GEO or AI stuff, but we found that our clients are doing well in ChatGPT and LLMs, which we checked. But we are open to any feedback, questions, critique of this study, and hope that it kind of starts a dialogue. It's kind of a mini study that may evolve deeper, but data's from the last 90 days, what's happening now. Leads are completed lead form submissions on our clients' websites. So property owner, investor lead form submissions, not necessarily qualified leads. We're also not tracking calls, because some have that set up the right way, some didn't. It was just too much of a variable. We decided to stick to, one that's steady across all the accounts, the property owner, pre-rental analysis type forms, those submissions. LLM visibility was spot checked. So we took 10 random of the 31 companies and did a search, in ChatGPT. They've kind of tried to replicate the Google Maps thing, but we did a random search like best property management companies in Antigua, California, for example. And in a new session every time, so new chat, nothing that would influence ChatGPT's results. And you can see how they've kind of replicated the Google Maps, which we'll get into, but this is how we verified. There's screenshots at the bottom that get into that. This data is from Goodjuju clients. These are clients who we are working on their SEO. Likely have better, not likely, they do have better than average websites. So the websites convert better than ever, and SEO is being worked on. So just what I'm trying to emphasize is these are not just random property managers. These are property managers who have strategically invested in a conversion optimized website, focusing on their SEO. So lastly, LLM attribution is knowingly understated. So the way that it's trackable currently misses a lot. Well, not a lot. It doesn't really know how much. But let's say you do a search on ChatGPT, like I did, and then I click this company. Let's see what happens if I click their website. So there is a UTM source GMB listing. It's interesting why there's a GMB listing from that. This is going to be looked into more, but the main sources of data that they're pulling from is Bing, Yelp, and other third-party sites, but they're not using Google data. From what I understand currently, that's Google's advantage. That's why Google is still dominating this race, is because people want to go to Google Maps and they're trying to recreate it, but they have to use other data sources. And this rating doesn't say where it's from. So here's the sources. bestbuy.com. It's a great source for property. You can see Trustpilot, Best Property for You, Indeed, Thumbtack, Zillow, and then the company's websites. As far as this data, the stars and ratings, I believe that is a partnership through Bing. Or maybe it's pulling just ratings from different sources and combining them together. It's not very clear. You can't click on it or anything. We'll get into that in a second. But what I was trying to say is when someone clicks from ChatGPT or these LLMs in Google Analytics, it's not always shown. Sometimes it's lumped into direct traffic. It's not explicitly shown as coming from ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And so that's an issue, which we'll get into. But overall, as we hit on at the top, Google still owns the search market by a landslide. 54% of converted owner leads, these are conversions on the website, came from the map pack and Google search. In the GA4 report for user attribution, it lumps everything into one. It doesn't show you actual. So here in GA4, when you go to user acquisition, and then we're sorting for the first user source medium, how did someone first reach your website? This is for our site, goodjuju.com, but it's lumping Google. We have a business listing, but that's not how people find us. But this is how it's showing property managers as well. It's not showing, Google listing versus Google organic, down in the search results. They're lumped together as one, which is worth noting. But that is 54% of all of the leads. So 1,068 out of 1,975. And the direct maps, that's another 34%. That's where the full rounded 88% comes from. And direct and maps, this is people who come to your site directly. It's also some clicks from LLMs that can't be traceable. It's people who already know your business, like your clients and your tenants. And so they already know your website. This chart shows the breakdown. So here's the Google Maps. We know that it's mostly the Google search, the local map pack, because it's been studied in other industries as well, that it's about across the board, not in property management, just across service industries. It's about 70 something percent of people. That's where they hone in on, is the Google Maps, the local listings here, which it's not showing. It's showing one company, property management. I don't know. So of course, the ads at the top, so they make their billions, and then this is what they show next. because this is what people want to see. And like I said, the studies across from other bigger organizations that have done these studies, it's around 70%. This is where they're doing their browsing, and less down here. Hopping back, yeah. So Google Search and Map Pack, direct maps, referral traffic. So that's like if you're listed on a site like propertymanagement.com, Expertise, NARPM, any other site where you're listed and somebody finds you there and then clicks over to your site, then other, and then LLMs and AI. So it looks very tiny, right? It's 1.6%. And it is small, but it is understated. So I've already kind of explained this about the whole Google organic. It doesn't show, Google search profile. It shows everything lumped into one. And, there's a difference obviously on the direct and maps traffic compared to Google search, because the direct, I don't know why it lumps direct and maps together, specifically Google Maps. But these are people who, again, lots of different intent. It can be tenants, it can be clients, it can be vendors, it can be solicitors, job applicants, competitors. And that's why the conversion rate is obviously much better through the map pack and Google search compared to direct. Now, the big one. So the big finding here, we knew that AI referred traffic was going to be small, but it had the highest conversion rate by 1%. So as far as traffic, the AI and LLM accounted for 0.9% of traffic, but 1.6% of all leads, meaning the conversion rate is high. And this is the chart here showing that 3.7, here's 2.7, 2.5. And there's a few reasons for that. They're already kind of sold. When you go to ask an AI, you are understanding that it's doing the research for you. So it's doing the research and then showing you what you want, rather than when you go to Google, it presents you information and you do your own research. So when someone does an AI search and is presented an option, they're already pre-sold a little bit. They're kind of trusting that these are the best ones because the AI has done the research and they're warmer to its recommendation, which makes sense. So it is high quality traffic. It's 34 times less, but it is understated. This is just to show you, we did the spot check. We checked 10 random companies, like I showed here, typing in best property management companies, city, in a fresh session, verifying that they were in the listings there. And 9 out of the 10 we found were. And then there was some issues. So there was one search. I was searching for a particular city, state, and it gave me a different state. And it took multiple prompts to correct the state. Another situation in Littleton, Colorado, ChatGPT said the market is small and, helpfully showed me Denver results instead of Littleton. Whereas in Google, if you wanted to find a company in Littleton, they would show you the companies in Littleton. ChatGPT said, hey, there's not very many companies there. Let's show you Denver. There's a lot. That to me was weird. I want to see property managers in Littleton. And limited inventory. So on this search, it was on this search here in Mesa, Arizona, Google had about 20 companies in the local results and ChatGPT had 7. So there's a lot of companies missing. And this comes down to, again, the sources that they're pulling from. ChatGPT alone, they have a partnership from Bing, but who uses Bing? It's a very small share in the search engine market. And so people don't have, their profiles fully optimized there. This is a potential thing to improve your ChatGPT presence, is the sources they're pulling from, like Bing and Yelp, even though, in property management, Yelp is everybody's worst nightmare. With these listings, created and optimized, that's essentially how you would make sure that your listed correctly in ChatGPT's kind of local thing here, from what I understand. I'm not saying that as a fact, but that's what I understand how the system works, is that it's through Bing, and we're going to be doing more research on that. So yeah, just some errors and kind of weird things that happened in those searches, but 9 of the 10 companies did show up in the top 5. And so they do have the same visibility on ChatGPT for the same type of search as they do on Google. So we checked both places basically to make sure that it was apples to apples. And more info on the attribution gap. So there's a couple links here in this article, and they get deeper on this attribution and how Google Analytics is not able to correctly measure the amount of AI traffic and the assumptions that other studies have. And on kind of a, not moderate, not aggressive, just a good estimate that I've seen is probably 2 to 3 times what Google Analytics actually shows of that 1.6. So this might actually is probably actually, 4%, 5%, and it could be higher. We did see a couple accounts where they did have 5%, 6%. Again, this data here, this is averages. And so there were some companies that, had nothing. And then there were some companies that had 5, 6% of their leads from ChatGPT in particular. So there is this attribution gap, and it needs to be assumed that this 1.6% figure is 2 to 3%, 2 to 3 times higher at least, maybe as high as 4, 5, 6%. And that still makes it a very small amount compared to Google, but it is important. Social media, not talking paid social media, just social media, performed very poorly. 0.8% of leads came from this, 2.7% of traffic, 0.8% of leads, conversion rate of 0.6. People are not going to Instagram and Facebook and TikTok when they're looking for a property manager. So we already kind of knew this. Most people understand this, but it's good to have a social presence for your brand and awareness and social signals, even for SEO and for AI search engines. But you don't need to be spending too much time posting 3 times a day on Instagram, not bringing much. This is paid search. We don't have much paid search going on with our clients right now, but it did okay. So it was 1.4% of total website visits, the conversion rate of 1.7. So much better than social. And that is a mix of a few Google ads, pay-per-click ads, and a few Facebook ads campaigns. Just a few. We're running some tests. So not many clients there doing that, maybe 5 out of 31, but there was some data showing us the stuff there. And then referral traffic, again, that's if you're, propertymanagement.com, expertise, NARPM, whatever. This was 5% of all traffic and 6% of all leads, 2.5% conversion rate. That's good. So there's value in being listed on these other types of websites. And, not only for the referral traffic, that's kind of the secondary benefit, really. There's also a very large SEO benefit, and for AI search, right, for GEO, love it. But those are important signals for SEO. This is a complete breakdown here. This is the full chart showing everything laid out next to each other. This traffic percentage, lead percentage, conversion rates, and Google clearly won with the amount of leads and traffic by a long shot with decent conversion rates. ChatGPT, again, understated. This number is actually higher, but did have the highest conversion rate. So what does this mean? What should you be doing? Have your listings all solid everywhere, especially your Google one, because that's where people are going the most. But for for SEO purposes, which influences AI results as well, your Bing, your Yelp, all the other business listings and citations that you can have, that is going to work double for you because, as I said, optimizing for AI is pretty much just doing SEO. So local SEO, general SEO principles, that is what you want to focus on. Probably don't need to be posting 3 times a day on Instagram or TikTok unless you've found some angle that works for you there. Our data with our clients shows that it's not doing much. And then here down below, there are screenshots just of all of the searches that were done for verification purposes, screenshots of the Google ad accounts. And yeah, I hope that this info is interesting and finally gives everybody in the property management space here some kind of understanding and some kind of baseline on where property management leads come from right now and how things look. I think an interesting study, follow-up study, would be to do this same study and compare it to a year ago, or even 6 months ago. I don't know. We'll have to look and see. But it would be interesting to see how things are evolving. What's the pace that it's growing? Because what we're really looking at here is just the share. What we really care about is how much of it is from Google, how much of it is from LLMs and AI search, and how fast is that changing. So a follow-up study would be interesting to see now versus a year ago, and 6 months, and now might be a follow-up study doing the same thing to see how that changes. And yeah, potential more studies to come. But again, this is Landon with Goodjuju, the CEO and founder here. I backed this study, did most of it myself, and open to any questions, critiques, ideas. You can visit our site. You can find my email down here somewhere on the page. There's also a PDF here, kind of a summarized version if you want that to share with somebody. But yeah, signing out. Thank you.